Are you an anti-Semitic Jew, or are you a self-hating Jew? How do they label you?
I don't get called anti-Semitic as far as being Jewish, but some people say, you know, you're a self-hating Jew. It really depends on the one that is coming against me. I know that one of my sources for the Middle East there, which is, of course, Israeli, he's actually said to me recently, he said, you know, Stephen, he said, at one time we had hope for you to be able to come to Israel. He said, because I appreciate the fact you stand for Jesus, I have respect for that, but you've really kind of peeved off everybody in the Israeli government now, so that's probably out the door completely now. And that's because of the bold stance we take as far as...
So if a person is a Gentile, non-Jew, and they criticize Zionism, not Jewish people, if they criticize Zionism, then they get labeled as anti-Semitic. But if a Jew criticizes Zionism, he or she is labeled as self-hating Jew.
Yes.
That's the way this game works?
Exactly how it works.
All right.
And the anti-Semitism is a propaganda. That's all it really is.
Well, there's no Semitic race.
Well, exactly.
There's only Semitic languages. There's about 300 Semitic languages. Hebrew is one of them. But there's no Semitic race. In fact, there's only one race. And if you want to be theologically correct, there are two races, saved and unsaved. That's it. The human race is either saved by Jesus Christ or they're unsaved. And those are the two groups. The rest of it, skin color, all that kind of stuff, doesn't matter.
That's
now,
right.
Yana, what about you? What's your background? Steve, you were born in Alabama, Florida, up in the Panhandle.
I used to say my mother was kind enough to take me to a regular hospital instead of being born in the backwoods. So I got born in Northwest Florida.
All right.
So
look, I grew up in Appalachia. All right. So we got similar background. Okay. How about you?
Well, I'm originally from East Europe, former Czechoslovakia, and I came to Christ in 2010. My background is that I'm from kind of mixed household. My mother was not Jewish. She was a Gentile. So in Israel, they consider me a Gentile. They don't consider people whose father is Jew, they don't consider them Jewish. So I am labeled often as anti-Semitic when I speak out.
So he's self-hating Jew and you're anti-Semitic.
That's right.
Is that according to your enemies?
According to our enemies. That's right. All because we just bring to light the teachings of Judaism, which while in Israel, of course, when you're there, you start noticing things. But because of our Zionist approach to prophecy, and to Bible in general, and we were in a circle of Zionist Christians, I started to research a lot Jewish roots and Jewishness, and I wanted to know what it is that Judaism is about. What does Judaism believe? So I started to study their writings, and their writings include Talmud, Zohar, Kabbalah, Shulchan Aruch, which is their Jewish law, or it's called Halakha. And I started to expound on, listen to a lot of teachings by rabbi. I would open up a lot of videos that Chabad rabbi would specifically teach on Halakha and on Talmud and explain certain things. And I started to see that there is a huge discrepancy between Christianity and Judaism, that Christianity has absolutely nothing to do with Judaism. Judeo, Christianity, as often as referred to, is oxymoron statement. It's diametrically opposed. And I started to see that basically they actually are the enemies of Christianity. Yes. So I could not logically understand.
And Judaism is not biblical, even by Old Testament standards.
That's correct.
God did not create Judaism.
Exactly. Judaism, as we know it today, is basically Pharisaism. Judaism is not true faith. It's not nothing that God has given.
It's what Jesus condemned.
Exactly.
Right.
So I started to notice that we have the same battles today as first century Christians, as apostles. and that our enemies are the same enemies as enemies of Jesus. And it was the Pharisees with their oral law. You see a lot of Christians today, especially in Zionist circles, they think that Judaism is about Old Testament. That Judaism is just the Old Testament. All they believe, the Jews, they just believe the Moses law, and they practice the law of Moses. They have 613 commandments. Most of these Christians are not familiar with the Talmud, Zohar, and Kabbalah, and where this 613 mitzvot comes from and what they're all about. So I started to study what they're about and what the Talmud teaches, and I noticed that there is actually a plan, there is a plot, and that's a plot against Christianity. And I could not logically understand why would Christian leaders form friendships with Jewish rabbis.
Take the next several minutes and summarize what is this plan that you've discerned?
Well, at first, let me bring you one of the books here, The Secret Doctrine in Israel by Waite, W-A-I-T-E. This is a book.
We can put this on the screen.
Right.
There it is right there. That's the book, and Secret Doctrine in Israel, A.E. Waite. And
Yes.
I think it was written in 1909,
Maybe even, yes.
1905, something like that.
It's yes, and what it explains is the basically secret doctrine of the Zohar. What is behind Zohar, and you have to understand that the soul of the Talmud is Zohar, and the soul of Zohar is Kabbalah, the occultism or sorcery, as I refer to it. Now, this particular book, it doesn't speak against it. It only explains what it is, what the secret doctrine is. And here in a preface, it actually speaks of the secret tradition in Israel, together with some account of the manner in which it influenced Christian scholarship in Europe during 16th, 17th, and 18th centuries. It seems like this is plot that is not new. This has been pre-planned long time ago.
They've been infiltrating Christian churches and universities and organizations for centuries.
Exactly.
To change the gospel.
To change the gospel and completely put a virus in Christianity. I call that a virus, leaven of the Pharisees. Mm-hmm. And today's Christianity, especially here in America, has a virus. And we have to identify what the virus is. But it's basically the same problem as Apostle Paul has. It's a Judaizing of Christianity, but they also brought in occultic practices. But anyway, as far as I was studying this, I came to a really shocking information. And here on this page, I highlighted it. So let me go back to it.
I want to say that when Jana and Steve told me about the book that we just saw, written by Mr. Waite, so while they were talking to me about it, I went online and I found an original first edition from, I think, in 1905 or so, and I found one for sale. Because you can buy them, reprints,
right.
But I prefer to, whenever I can buy an original first edition, I prefer to do that, because now I can prove to people this is not an alteration, this is the actual first edition of that book. It's like the Scofield Bible. I have several editions, but I have the original first edition. All right, which was, I think, 1909, 1907, something like that, when the very first one came out, because I want to be able to prove to people the lies that Cyrus Scofield published in the Holy Bible. And if you have the actual first edition, that's proof, that's evidence. Nobody can say, well, the copy you have is 100 years old, it's been changed, it's been altered. No. I want to be able to hold that first one. So I was able today to order an original first year edition of this book.
Right.
And I'm very eager to to study this book. So what's in this book? What am I going to find?
Well, you're going to find what is actual secret doctrine of the Zohar. It's not pretty. I don't really recommend that people who are not strong in faith, or it's
Right.
a book for the research, for the purpose of researching what the doctrine of actual Kabbalah, Zohar, and Talmud is, what Judaism is about, because once you understand what Judaism is about, you start understanding that these bridges that Christian ministers are making with Pharisees or rabbis today, those are very dangerous bridges.
Yes.
And on one side, it's always Christians that submit to the Jews. It's always Christians that have to agree not to preach Jesus to Jews. You see, the Jews, they don't compromise. They will never compromise what they believe. But the Christians are ready to compromise. And why? Because they have wolves for teachers.
Yes.
Who have actually made bridges with the Pharisees, the enemy of Christ. But in this particular book, I just want to read you a little bit what got me understanding what the plot is against Christianity. It says here, according to the Midrash Talpigoth, the Messiah will bring eternal peace, which of course was understood by the Israelites as peace for Israel, plus that which may follow extermination for all who did not enter by conversion into the house of Jacob. So
Extermination.
yes. So basically what they teach is that if Gentiles or Christians do not attach themselves to the Jews, they will be exterminated. And of course, we are well known for our Noahide laws, that we brought this to a light. So then you go to Talmud and you start reading what is the plan for Gentiles. You see, Judaism is a two-tier system. Judaism puts the wall of partition back. It's the Jews and non-Jews. And according to Judaism, non-Jews are different species. They are not, they're humans, but they're not at the level of the Jews. Jews are supposedly divine. They're light of the world. They're the chosen. They have life of Hashem inside of them. That's the way they explain life of God inside. And the Gentiles, they can never achieve it. They're different species. They're on animalistic level. And the only way for Gentiles to make it to the world to come is to attach themselves to the Jews. And how do they do that? Well, through the Noahide laws, 7 Noahide laws.
What percentage of Jews in the world believe that trash?
Well, this is an interesting question, Steve. You did research on
Well,
percentage.
I did a little bit of a research because I know that when we got attacked for bringing out the Noahide laws, it was suggested that only a small percentage, about 2% of radical Jews in Israel actually believe this. But that's the furthest thing from the truth. But even if it were a small percentage, you have to keep in mind it's that percentage that control the world governments. But just for an example, 5% of Jews all over the world globally are Hasidic, which are all Talmudist. But the number continues to go up because in the Hasidic, after you go outside the Hasidic, then we have what we call Orthodox or ultra-Orthodox. That makes up about 30% of all the Jews worldwide. So about 30% of the Jews worldwide are hardcore, and maybe 15% worldwide we would say are hardcore Talmudist, Zoharist, Kabbalist, whereas the other 15% out of that total of 30% worldwide also adhere to it, but they're not hardcore. But nonetheless, at least 30% of all Jews hold the Talmud as a sacred writing, as the oral law of God, and it's held in higher regard than the Bible itself.